dope. And the heads bob. Hey guys, welcome to another cracking edition of the Matt Brown Show. Today we are going to talk about colonics. No, we're not. Maybe we will, we don't know. But our guest today is none other than the infamous Cathy Davies. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Welcome. So,
Just to clarify, I'm not the colonics doctor.
I know. But this is going to be a different show. So usually we do like hard-hitting business and innovation stuff. And this is not untrue in your world. But really, this is a different story that we're going to tell today. So you have your own show on Fox Live called Outpatients. So we'll talk about that in a moment and kind of really dive into what that show is all about. But let's land some context here for our listeners. So who is Cathy Davies? Like, what's the headline story there?
Headline story is I'm a mom of three.
Congratulations.
My biggest job. And I have total ADD, so run around doing a million other things. But really, my family is my life. And my second life is my practice. And the main thing I do in my practice is hair transplants for vein bald men. But where my passion really lies...
That's what I got.
Everyone here has actually got good hair, luckily, so I'm not offending anyone.
Thank you. Well done, guys. Well done. You're qualified.
But my passion with the hair transplant has actually become the reconstructive side. So if someone's been in a burn or an injury, to actually use hair to cover the eyebrow or reconstruct their hair, and also do a bit of aesthetics. So we use that to reconstruct patients as well. But I'm not a surgeon. I do that as the GP.
Okay, so how on earth did you wind up in this situation? I mean, you got your own show on Outpatients.
You mean the
Fox
three
Live and
kids? Shall I explain how I
No,
wound up?
that I can sympathize with.
Okay.
I've got two of my own, so none of you though will. No, you two youngins, the youngins in the studio. But I mean, like, was it when you were a young girl and you cast your mind back to, the very beginning, were you like, that's who I want to be one day? Or was there a kind of a sequence of events and calamities or what have you, that got you to where you were?
The first thing that made me want to be a doctor was when I was 7 years old, I was burnt by fire. I was playing as an angel with my cardboard wings, and my cousin's candle accidentally, we hope, we never know to this day, lit me on fire and I ran down the passage. So I was lying on my stomach for 3 months, and I think that ignited this passion and empathy for people who've been injured.
How bad was that burn?
It was a bad burn, but... I remember being in a lot of pain, but more the frustration of lying on your stomach for 3 months, not being able to move. So it makes you sympathize. But I recovered quite quickly, wasn't too scarred. And I always just had this passion for biology and people. And so it was an obvious choice. 20 years ago now, I graduated as a doctor. So I've done a couple of things since then, but I've kind of ended up exactly in my dream job.
They say, that expression, I wouldn't wish X on your worst enemy, like burning for sure. I totally wish that.
Yeah.
Dude, when I first got back to South Africa about 10 years ago, after like just traveling the world and stuff, I was still drinking back then. I no longer drink, but it wasn't. Thank you very much. Thank you. In fact, what's the date today? Is it the 27th?
29th.
2 days ago was the year. 1 year anniversary.
Fantastic.
So thanks. And so I got hammered with my sister, and cognac is obviously the thing you whip out right at the end of the night after drinking all the other alcohol. And then her boyfriend at the time was like, dude, why don't we warm this up? I have this burner. And in the burner, they put, I think it's paraffin or something like that. And then it was this dinky, and I'm drawing here. So the guys listening on the podcast later, like I'm basically doing like a U, but it's a very thin wire.
It's not a great drawing.
And then, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to have to draw fucking pictures here now. But anyway, and I rested this cognac glass, and I was sitting on the bar like this, just pretty much like we're sitting. And this thing just fell over. And it fell over on my left leg. And as I'm trying to rub my leg, in other words, trying to basically put the fire out on my leg, my skin is just coming off my leg. And it was, I was in shock. I was still hammered. But then I remember walking into the hospital, And like literally 2 meters before I was able to reach the bed, I literally just passed out from agony and pain and stuff.
That's agony.
It was the most, I cannot tell you what it feels like to be burnt 3rd degree in any case. We're going to talk more around like the kind of work that you do. But I would wish that on a worst enemy. But like, God forbid, like anyone actually gets burnt seriously. It sucks ass, So let's talk about the work that you do. So you've obviously qualified 20 years ago. And what happened, on your journey in building this practice of yours?
So I was in corporate to begin with, and then had these 3 kids who I love and adore, but they're also parasites when it comes to your career. So I had to change paths.
You can't do both, true or false? Can you do career and kids?
You can do career and kids, but corporate career and kids is pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there's a lot you can do with it. And I think they're better off for it, having a working parent sometimes, But anyway, that's a whole nother episode. But what I did was I was working in oncology when I was in corporate, and the cancer patient's hair was growing back, but their eyebrows weren't. So they said to me, please learn how to do an eyebrow transplant. So I good old Googled it and found this amazing place in Greece, went to study eyebrow transplants, but saw the men walking in after their transplants with this amazing hair. So I phoned my husband and he said, what now? Because I'm always doing a million things. And I said, I'm staying and I'm learning how to transplant men's hair. This was September 2006. By December 2006, my GP practice was closed because I could not accommodate all the people wanting hair.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
And I'm actually closed now. I've reached my capacity. My books are closed.
Well, there's champagne problems, right?
Exactly. For most.
Yeah, but why though? Why that specifically? What like inside you went, that's the problem that I want to solve for humanity and build a business off?
I think it was by default because I was everything kind of, I just go with the flow in my life because it has taken me to amazing places. But working with these oncology patients, I saw that no matter how serious it is and they face death, they still want to feel good about themselves and feel feminine, or the men want to look the same as they did before. And also just a damn good business. Yeah.
I mean, how much of that cost is actually covered by medical aids?
Zero. I don't deal with the medical aids at all.
So it's all private.
All private, unless it's a scar that I'm covering. Yeah.
So, I mean, shall we talk more about like what kind of patients do you see?
So 95% of my patients are very type A men because transplants really only work well on men when we're looking at hair.
Why is that?
So if you look at a bald man, so let's take Joshua Dawes. I'm not insulting because I think he's fictional. So if you look at that Joshua Dawes horseshoe ring of hair at the back of your head, no matter how, it's very attractive.
Mav.
No matter how,
that's you in 20 years, bro.
No matter how bald a man goes, they never lose that thick ring of hair. So they always have to shave it. So we take from there and put it where they need it. And we do one by one. So it's very natural. It's not those pluggy things. But that thick hair never gets lost. But unfortunately with females, when they're bald, they kind of thin all over and they don't have that Joshua Dawes resource.
But women don't go bald as prominently as men do,
common.
right? Or is it the same?
So women don't bald outright, but balding and thinning in women is very common and it's devastating. And the reason you don't see it is because it's covered up. Wigs, it's not, or they don't go out, it's not socially acceptable. Whereas with men, even though it does affect them, it's still quite acceptable.
So why do people okay, sure, I understand the natural process of going bald, right? But what's the underlying driver for why people buy the thing that you sell? Is it ego? Is it confidence? It's
self-confidence. It drastically affects their self-esteem. So the people I don't see, and there are millions of people out there, are fine with it. They're bald, they shave their head. And in fact, that's one of the first things I try and encourage someone to do. Try live with it. It's a mission to go through a hair transplant. But it affects their self-esteem greatly. They find their look changes. Or on the other hand, it's someone who's getting divorced and is trying to reinvent themselves. But it drastically affects self-esteem. So you can't really relate until you've been through that.
Yeah. A friend of mine actually, he phoned me the other day. He was like, this was like a year ago, by the way. Sorry, not the other day. So he says, he comes to my home and he's like, I'm wearing a hat. And it's like, it's like 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, dude, why are you wearing a fucking hat? Like, it's 9 o'clock at night. You're trying to be cool or something. I've known you for 30 years. Like, get over it, And he's like, blah, blah, sob story. And apparently the story goes like this. A friend of his girlfriend opened up a hair transplant practice and they said, listen, we want to do you for free. The treatment's like $100,000, some crazy number. I don't know like what the actual numbers were, but I know it was like, holy shit, that's a lot of money. And they basically didn't tell him what the detail of the procedure will be or would be. So what wound up happening was that if you picture a man's face, that from the ears up all the way literally over the head to the other ear forward was shaved. And then they tried to transplant little bits of hair, right? And so they didn't tell him this until they'd shaved his head.
Yeah, so, read the fine print, patients.
Yeah, I know, but it took forever to grow back.
Oh, shame, poor guy.
I know. I don't even know if we should mention his name, Jason.
Another thing I find with guys is I would never go up to my friend and say, yo, you've got so fat, you can't wear those shorts anymore. But people just go up to guys and say, hey, but you're going bald. Aha, look at this. And it really affects them. I find it very strange.
Do you think men get a harder time when it comes to going like bald and stuff like that?
Yeah. It's a huge, but like as a woman, you'll say, oh, he's a old and bald, or, it's an insult. On a movie, a baddie, the bad lawyer has always got terrible hair.
Yeah, why? Lawyers just have that look, right?
The bad one, the bad on the other side,
the dodgy ones. So, I mean, how many patients at any time do you see?
So it takes about 6 to 8 hours to do one hair transplant. So I only do one a day. I have 3,000. I've done approximately 3,000 hair transplants in the last 12 years.
What?
And that's why I'm actually totally full.
That's crazy.
Just looking after my existing patients.
Yeah.
But only ever one a day. Mm-hmm. If I've double booked or really fucked up, like, when 2 people have flown in at once and I do 2, it is absolutely an exhausting day.
Tell me about the actual process. So assume I'm your patient in 10 years' time. Like, how does that actually work?
So I do need to shave Joshua Door area. That probably happened to your friend. And then take out hairs one by one with this tiny little punch.
Are you awake during this?
You are. Because you don't have to be asleep, but I sedate the men so I don't have to chat for 6 hours. But what sometimes happens...
they probably do want to chat.
What sometimes happens is they have the reverse effect and they chat even more for 6 hours, which is very difficult dead work. But usually you're drowsy and sleeping because it's not that painful. Take out one by one. So you get all these little scabs at the back that totally heal up. And then insert them one by one wherever you need them. So the biggest thing is designing the hairline so it's not fake and it suits the face.
So is it like a pre-consultation thing where I'd come to you and go, and you take a photo of my head and then you go, here's the type of hairline that we're going to put on your face.
Exactly. Hairline and density is a huge thing because like that Joshua Door hair is it's your resource. So if you've got very thin, wispy donor hair, there's only so much I can do. It's like trying to invest with R1 million or with 10 Rand, So, okay, million's probably quite low. But you know what? You get the gist. So, that hair, if it's thick and strong, I can give you the most spectacular result. One of my best examples is Francois Hoogaard, the rugby player. If you look at his hair through the time, you'll see how amazingly it's turned out. But then other people, and it's usually the rich, demanding people, have this thin, tiny, wispy hair, and there's not so much you can do with it. And then we just put it in and you don't get that great a density.
So, for those of you who don't know, Francois Hoogaard's a former Springbok rugby player, and like I'm a kind of a fan of his. However, right, the hair thing, like I never would have said that he had a hair problem, like ever. Do you know what I mean? Like how long ago was this? Was it before he was on TV and like the guy?
So if you go on to if you just Google images, you'll see it's not that long ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Mav, can you Google some images there, bud? I want to have a look. So, okay, cool. So let's move on to quote of the day, right? So here is your quote of the day. Know their story. Tell us more about that.
So know their story is about no matter what, I've been in corporates, I've run my own practice. There's so much strength in diversity, but it also causes a lot of problems in the workplace. So take the time to know your colleagues, your employees, your employer's story, because if you just understand where they're coming from, usually it eliminates 85% of the problems.
Do you deep dive into, like, let's just say a patient comes to you, Joshua Door dude, and he's like, hey man, I've got this hair problem and, I have lost self-confidence. Do you like get into the real emotional stuff with them to really understand where you want to take them as a doctor and as a practitioner?
Very much so. And sometimes I actually say no. I fire patients all the time if I don't think that, at the end of the day, I want them to be happy and satisfied with my results. So if I see that there are deeper issues and nothing's going to make them happy, then I fire
So you'll
them.
actually tell the seller, listen, I'm not going to touch you.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah, and the longer I've been doing it for and the older I've got, the more often I actually do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, what are some of the other examples of that?
So we call it the door handle syndrome. So someone will come in.
This is Joshua. The door handle syndrome. I'm seeing a pattern here.
So a patient will come in, they'll tell you their key complaint, and as they're leaving, they reach the door, they'll tell you what they really want to tell you.
Which is?
So by the way, I also have a pacemaker. You've asked them, have you got any medical conditions or whatever? So they say, by the way, my main problem is my penis is too small. Can you please refer me to someone?
What?
So you think, they're not actually here. So you've got to watch out. But that's an extreme example. But sometimes they'll come and it's almost like a body dysmorphic disorder. They want their hair, and then actually on episode 2, I had a guy who was a classic example. He was so desperate. We fixed his hair. It looks like a bush. He's so happy. But now he wants to sculpt his cheeks and open up his sinuses. And I would have rethought if I'd picked up that he was so body dysmorphic, I would have rethought ever starting work on that patient.
Body dysmorphic meaning those people who want to change themselves.
Yes, they
physically.
see, yeah. And then it never stops.
What about other plastic surgery? I mean, geez, it's like a thing, especially in women. It's like everything can be changed, like your tits, your ass, your hips replacement.
Quite like that, but yeah.
Is there anything that can't be changed? Do you know what I mean? God forbid they gave a man a pill that would make his dick bigger. Do you know what I mean? I know it's not Viagra permanently.
Yeah,
you know
it
what I'm
would be a billionaire. There are a lot of signs under the bridge saying that you can do that, but I've never seen that.
Yeah. But I mean, what are your views on the general plastic people who want to change themselves for looking better, who potentially, I don't know, I mean, we do a lot of work obviously with talent essentially and help them build their personal brands, and appearance is obviously a big part of that. I mean,
look, some people look a hell lot better when they do work. You can't deny it. It's going overboard, or once you get an unnatural look, it's very, very difficult to go back. And that's the risk you run. But, it definitely helps people's self-esteem. We do age prematurely, and there's a lot of pressure on us as a society to stay young. So that's great. You don't want to look in the mirror, feel great, but you look tired. But it's great to be refreshed and feel young. But there's a lot of very bad plastic surgery that we see. Not only the actual surgery, but fillers. People confuse Botox and fillers, but fillers are those things that can really make you look weird, with the lips and the cheeks.
Okay.
And it can just, if you don't understand the anatomy, you can really make someone look very weird.
It looks super weird. Is it Dolly Parton? Looks like
Yeah.
that. Who's the
Mickey Rourke?
Mickey, yeah, exactly. Kim Kardashian's another one. Thanks, Brad. Goldie Hawn is another one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't look good. Sorry.
It doesn't look good. And it actually comes from so when you age, your skeleton shrinks, your fat pad shrinks. So you can't just put filler in the skin. It's a 3D thing. So you have to understand the anatomy. And like you said, sometimes there are things you can't do. You just have to accept some of aging.
Yeah. Can we talk about your show, Outpatients, on is it SABC?
I thought you'd never ask.
Oh, no, I was going to not do it. No, but it's rad.
On Fox Life.
Fox Life, okay. DSTV, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, rad, cool. We don't want to be on the other network,
No.
right? So, yeah. But I mean, how did that actually come about? So there you are, you're running a very successful practice, you chock-a-block, you're making cash, livingthedream.com, you got 3 kids, everything's rocking and rolling. Who phoned? How did that whole thing happen?
So I had a patient from LA who was referred. I have a lot of foreign patients who was referred from a friend, didn't know anything about him, did his hair transplant and went beautifully, and he said he wants to come see me. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to tell me the left's lower than the right, or the usual thing. So anyway, he comes and he says they've just finished the last season of Dr. Ray 90210, which was called Celebrity Doctors or something, and they're looking for something different. They're looking for a couple of doctors around the world. Will I film a few procedures? So I said, sign me up. And once again, my husband said, what are you doing now? Because it's always something new. And I didn't realize how intense or big it would be. And 30 patients later, and almost a year later, we've now got a TV show that's purely about my patients. They didn't ever find out the doctors around the world. He actually tricked me. Thanks, Damien. You actually tricked me.
Oh, that's so awesome, though.
It's also Brown, Damien Brown.
Is it Damien?
Yeah.
Well, guilty by association, clearly, you know. But I mean, do you see yourself as a celebrity now?
Totally not. I don't think anybody knows who I am really. And
now they do.
One of the reasons, now you do. Now they do. So we'll see.
Sorry
ask
about
me
that.
that question again in a minute. But the reason we actually called the show Outpatients is it's about the patients and their story. It's not really about me.
Well, no, their story, right? Like the quotes.
Yeah, exactly. And their story, exactly. And I have had the privilege of working with the most amazing patients, and I mean way more than are actually on the show, because obviously not everyone wants to share the most intimate details of their life on TV. And I'm so appreciative to the ones who did. But every day I'm fascinated.
So what's the intended outcome here? I mean, are you trying to raise awareness about something, educate people? Like, what are you personally trying to get out of this?
So personally, it's not about my practice, because I can't take anybody. So it's trying to raise awareness and educate people about certain conditions. So we try pick 1 or 2 conditions a week and give some health tips. And also what I think people have responded to, and I don't know if it was intentional, but is that there is compassion out there. I think that's the kind of the take-home message when people have watched it. Everyone says brace yourself because social media is so hectic when a show starts. And I've had really good feedback. And I think it's like the realness of it, and that there's compassion, not just from me, but from people on the show, from parents, from...
Yeah, I love your work. I think there's very much a kind of a giving back philosophy, right, around that. Because I think... You know, what I love about those stories, and we're going to walk through 3 stories in a second, but it's those stories where you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, if that happened to me, like, I just wouldn't be able to live with the consequences of the shit that's life has just thrown at me.
And these people come in smiling. That's that's what blows me away every time.
Yeah. So should we talk about a couple of their stories?
Awesome.
Yeah. So the first one here is this lady. Is that the one that was chowed by a lion?
Yes.
Okay. So walk us through this particular patient, right? So she was on a game reserve or something like that?
Yeah, so this amazing, beautiful young girl, Courtney, like she said in the show, she was a pretty young little girl, not worrying about life. And her father had a farm in Zimbabwe, and they had 2 lions that had been brought up to the house for medical treatment, but they were in an enclosure that abutted the house. So Courtney was playing, looking through the window, obviously as a 9-year-old would, at these lions, and something in the lioness snapped, and she shattered the glass into thousands of pieces and pulled Courtney through the burglar bars.
With her mouth or with the paws?
With her paw. Okay. And dropped her. So now they're in this huge enclosure, so no one could reach them as yet. And
so hang on. So she's been dragged out the house,
out the house,
moved to the enclosure.
Yes. So now the gardener hears the riot and he's busy running up. But if you meet her, she is the strongest girl you'll ever meet in your life. So she got up to run away from this lioness, and the male lion then comes and claps. So she's attacked not by 1 but 2 lions. So the gardener actually, like beyond human strength, jumped over. There wasn't enough time to open the gate. He jumped over this huge fence, and like imagine how brave you must be to do that, and chased these 2 lions away and picked her up and saved her. And she was almost dead. And she was flown to somewhere. No, so she was just taken to the local hospital where they stitched her up very crudely. I mean, her brain was sticking out. She was in pieces.
Fuck.
And luckily, thank God, was flown to Mill Park Hospital, where it took 6 months in ICU recovering.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
And so you were describing to me, so where did her eyebrow go?
So what happened was, and it's hard to talk it, but if you picture a lion scraping up, it went up her face. Yeah.
Over the eyebrow
so it was so scarred that when I saw her, which was actually in the You magazine when they were telling her story, her eyebrow was right up by her hairline.
Jesus,
after everything had been fixed. So I was paging through the You magazine. I had just started hair transplants, and that was kind of my dream, to reconstruct people. And they were about to do what's called a balloon expansion, where you actually try stretch the skin. So you put a balloon in the skin. So as a 10-year-old girl, she would have had to walk around at a new school with a balloon in her skin. It's like a cone head, and then try pull it down. So I somehow contacted the You magazine, and I said, let's just try transplant and see if it works. We lasered off this eyebrow, and we gave her a new eyebrow, and it really worked so beautifully. And she was so grateful. And
how long after that incident was that photo taken? So she's got an eyebrow. She's looking relatively normal. I mean, you can still see quite a bit of...
No, this is still the first one, sorry.
Oh, is this the first one?
That's when it's all high, but then there.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's immediately post-op. And then
It's heavy, yeah.
what happened with the show was she kind of, I stalk her on Instagram because now she's a teenager.
Yeah.
And she doesn't live here. And she was looking amazing, but always wearing her hair in her face. And I said, Court, it's time for phase 2. There are new techniques now. There's microblading. So she was so happy to come and tell her story on the show. And we had reenacted the whole line thing. And we did the finishing touch, which, sadly, I don't think I put the pictures up here.
Yep.
But, and that's what the show was, is actually perfecting that eyebrow now and also catching up on how she's done in life.
Where is she now?
She's at boarding school. She's about to finish matric. And because of what she's experienced, she's actually studying somatology, which is hectic beauty therapy. It's like 4 years of beauty therapy because she's loved this experience and that's what she's going through. And she's found a boyfriend. This is all from Instagram stalking, by the way. She's found a boyfriend and she's just happy. It's a thing of the past, which I wanted it to be.
And I find that story just incredibly inspiring. Do you know what I mean? For such a young woman, and obviously looks in, I don't know, maybe I'm getting the word wrong, but looks for a woman is more important than a man in many instances, right? Just from societal pressures and stuff like that. I mean, how were you coaching her like through that process as a human to human, not the doctor trying to fix the cosmetic stuff, but at a human level, like were you coaching her in any way, and was she recounting to you how she felt in that time, and did she believe that she would ever like really come back to who she was?
Absolutely, yes. So when I first met her, she was a child and she didn't really, she wasn't self-conscious yet. So when she hit the early teens, I was very much involved in her life and coaching her. And what we forget as doctors is it is the bit of that door handle syndrome. It's not just what you see there and then. It's so much more. It affects your social, other older people, it affects your job. So you've got to take that into account. And if you can't manage it, kind of send them someone who could. But between her dad, her mother, and I think she's a independent, self-confident woman now.
That's amazing. Courtney, wishing you all the best, girl. She's an amazing story. Let's look at another one. This was also on your show, right?
Yeah.
This one here. What is this now?
So
that's a chest.
Yes. So
okay.
I transplant
hair. What the
hair.
hell? Hang on. It looks like a guy's chest.
It's a male's chest. So I transplant hair, right? But you can actually put a hair anywhere on the body and it'll grow, except for your palms and your soles. But I mean,
so could you put it on someone's nose? And
you
it would
could
grow?
put it here. I've done it, yes.
No
but
way.
like no one would really want hands on their palms.
You know what that means, Brad?
Yeah. We've all fallen for that. No. So I have every now and then weird requests. Okay, some of them I have to turn down because there's.
What's the weirdest request you've ever received?
So the weirdest request, I've had a lady who wanted me to transplant her husband's bald hairs onto his head because they were, according to her, a beautiful, rich, bright orange. I did, however, find his scalp hairs more appealing and ended up using those.
I'm just going to pull this hair from the balls and stick that on your head. Yes.
And that's when you pray the sedative kicked in. Oh, my God.
Humans, man.
Yeah. So anyway, lo and behold, this amazing guy comes in. His name's Derek, and he's got this full head of hair. And I'm thinking, why are you here? And he says to me, his whole life he's wanted chest hair. And, that's what he's here for. So I said, Derek, and I have to tell you this because I feel it's my duty that most people are removing hair on their chest. It's not so in. There's lasers, and I really want you to go away and think, I don't want to do something that you're going to regret. So anyway, he hounded me, and eventually we booked for the surgery, and he was happy to do it on TV, which is always a win.
As in live surgery on TV?
On the show.
Holy shit.
So he came in for his chest hair transplant, and then I always draw with a surgical marker in purple, which I think think one of the. And then
so that's not a scar; that's a surgical marker. Yeah.
Okay. And then he got my marker, and he said, "But it's not going to stick out the top of my shirt." So he actually drew so that the hairs. So anyway, once we got where he wanted the hairs, we inserted the hairs, and when he came for his after, he had this thick black hairy chest with a big gold chain, and he was just so happy.
You wanted that look with the chain in the hair, because otherwise it doesn't.
Yeah, he wanted the chain, and it's just very Magnum PI, and he was delighted, and I was actually very happy. I did it for him. His wife was excited, and it's actually amazing to see at 60 that a couple still do things for each other, and
Yeah.
okay, even if it's chest hair.
Yeah, honey,
But it
please
was
can you grow
cool.
your chest hair?
Yeah, I
You
can't
I'll
judge.
pay
It
for
was cool.
That's awesome. Let's look at the next one. Who's this individual?
Gosh. Okay.
This is a rugby player,
So
right?
this young boy, this is when he's 15 years old, and this is the last picture he posted on Instagram before this terrible incident happened to him.
So what's the context here? Like what was he doing? Like what happened?
So when the thing happened.
Like what actually happened?
So Capella, and I hope I'm clicking properly, was an
Is that right?
amazing.
You said?
Capella. He said I can call him Q, but I tried. Capella was at Paarl and was a prodigy, like an amazing rugby player. He was a child prodigy. They used to take him up to ages to play, and he was really talented and amazing. So much so that he got scouted at one event and was offered a scholarship. So it would have been grade 10, 11, and 12 at a school that's a feeder for the Blue Bulls. So his future was set, and he came from nothing, so he was really, really excited. Anyway, before he gets to go to the school, because he's still at his old school, he goes in to write an exam, goes to the loo after the exam, gets knocked out on the back of the head by a golf club by schoolmates, and doused with paraffin and set on fire.
Fuck, dude, who does that shit?
Yeah. Jealousy is
So that's a
very
picture
ugly.
of him. Is that after the burn?
So this is after the burn. So he burnt his ears off. But apart from the damage, he almost died. I mean, he got up himself. He woke up on fire. Nobody helped him. Ran to the tap and begged someone to turn on the tap. So somebody turned on the tap. He got flown to Tygerberg because he was left for dead and was days and days in ICU. And in fact, one day when his parents were driving home away from the ICU, they phoned him and they said, like, come back. We don't think he's going to make it. So it was really, really serious. And when someone's burned, like you, you must never pull the clothes off because the skin just comes off. So they pulled his tie. It was just handled very, very badly. But anyway,
Literally can't handle it, eh?
months and months and months later, he gets released from hospital, and all he wants to do is play rugby again. I mean, he's amazing. So he posts this on Instagram. I mean, not shy of his scars. This isn't a smiling pic, but in every other picture on Instagram with his scars, he's there smiling and positive and giving these quotes. And he's a young guy, and it's a recent injury. It's not like he's had years to get over it. So that blew my mind. Like, where do these kids find this strength of character? But I'd always heard the story, and I thought I'd love to have him on the TV show and help him if I could. And lo and behold, he pops up on my Instagram. He DMs me and says, hi, and we start chatting. He doesn't live here, unfortunately, so I only got him up for one treatment. But what I realized when I met him is because he's got these thick facial scars, and that's what we were focused on. So we treated his scars, and they've done really nicely. But I also assessed him for his ability to play. And luckily, it's more facial than body. So they did burn his hands. There's some webbing, but he can catch a ball, and he's back playing again. So the incident was never investigated. The principal sent the cops away saying he'd set himself on fire. The friends were never caught, okay? He's got no bitterness or revenge. All he wants to do is play rugby. He lost his scholarship. When he recovered and was able to play again, emailed the school, not to get the scholarship back, but to get a trial. They never replied to him, okay?
Bastards, eh?
So he's not asking for a handout. He just wants a fair trial to get a scholarship again. Really the most amazing young guy. But now he's back in PE. He's starting to play rugby at his school. They don't take it very seriously. So my next drive is to get him a scholarship.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing. Is there anything like our viewers listening to us right now could potentially do to help?
So we've started a fund for him.
What's it called?
So it's through Creative Capital.
Okay.
I'll put the details on my that episode's going to air next week, and then I'll put all the details on my social media.
Please let me know. I'll share it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a website that you can go to donate potentially, or
it's still being set up?
Is it?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay,
but
cool.
it will be. So, and this poor guy's been promised things, and people have visited him, and it never comes through. So, but he's unbelievable. He's playing
Crazy.
again. He's So
I want to ask you something. you obviously, I mean, those are just three examples of many other, sad stories of things happening to individuals where, it wasn't their fault and whatever. And then having to push through a lot of pain and, personal stuff to achieve things. And I find that narrative literally identical to entrepreneurs, right? So having to push through their own limitations to create amazing things. So when you look back and you hear stories like that, what do you think, if there is one thing, what's the one thing that makes people like Courtney and this chap here and the other, and less so the other dude, but people who have a lot of bad shit happen to them, push through and overcome that stuff? Like, what is that one thing?
The one common denominator that I've seen with all these patients, no matter what the age, is none of them took time to feel sorry for themselves. So, they weren't sorry for themselves a day. This is a few months after, he's already back on Instagram smiling. He's not milking it. And it's the same in business. If you land up and they're not educating you further, or there's so much online, the only person who's going to empower yourself is you.
Okay, cool. I love that. Should we do Injustice League? Is it knockout punch? Knockout punch. Cool. Damn, I really want to do Injustice League today. Cool. So what's your one top tip for entrepreneurs that you think, they can apply in their business today that's going to absolutely crush it for them?
So my top tip is actually find a unique service and unique product and develop that first before you worry about the fluff and your marketing and your Instagram. Even in medicine, you can go do a course to do, let's say, a nose, okay, not a nose job, that's surgery, but a lip filler. And you can have the best Instagram page, but you can stuff up. So develop the skill, make sure you're competent, and then, develop the fluff. It's the same as any service, because I find we want instant results these days, and that's our biggest fault.
I love that. Yeah, it's like product market fit, guys. So get that shit down and then look at scaling.
Product market fit, that was exactly what I was going to call it.
So that's cool. So shall we do, I have to do Injustice League. I'm begging to do that. Cool. So we're going to do the Injustice League. So the guys are going to get busy setting up. You're going to crush some shit here in the studio.
Okay.
So what is the one big injustice that you see in the world today that you really want to raise awareness about and kind of get out your system today?
So in the world, but specifically in South Africa, we are failing our children. In every... It was an easy target. Really so,
too soon, Mav.
We're failing our children in every shape and form, from the educational system to the healthcare system. The stats came out this week. There are hundreds of thousands of disabled children sitting at home because they're not the facilities at school. I mean, what message are we giving to us? We're just discarding them. They can't be educated. So we're failing our children in every shape and form. But at the top of that list is child abuse. It is rife. Rape of children and abuse of children. It's just unacceptably high.
Couldn't agree with you more. Heavy subject, totally one for your show. But yeah, let's do the Injustice League. So you can put your mic down over here. Okay, and Cathy is going to stand up and she's going to hit this little mannequin thing that we have here, which represents, it is masked in the studio, but it does represent, I'm going to get out the way here, but it does represent all those assholes out there that are abusing children. I want you to think about that person in your mind and just let rip. Go. 3, 2, 1. Oh! That was amazing. Well done. There you go. Congrats.
Thank you.
Cool. Let me get your chair. Cool. So, what motivates you to be successful? Like, you've obviously achieved a success by many accounts, one would argue. I mean, you've got a very successful practice. You're making cash. You've got your own show on Fox. How are you staying motivated? What motivates you?
I think I have ADD and I manage it very well by channeling it into things. And also, I'm very blessed in life. And, the only thing you can do is give that back,
What's the greatest lesson your father ever taught you?
My father taught me to treat, it's very similar to my message, but treat the janitor with as much respect as the CEO. And my father was on the board of 52 public businesses and started Altec with Bill Fenter.
What?
And
awesome.
I never forget visiting him at work one day, and we went to the cafeteria and he walked into the kitchen, he greeted the staff and scraped his tray and left it there. And that, of all the lessons he's ever taught me, it'll stay in my mind forever. He also taught me never to be overly nice to people at funerals, because he always sits at funerals and says, he wasn't neat and tidy. They're lying. So at your funeral one day, I'm going to have to be very honest.
So if you could get into a time machine and go back to when you had just graduated, what one piece of advice would you give yourself about life or business?
Don't drink that thing that was, at the graduation party. That wasn't good. No, seriously, about life and business is, I would have given myself the advice is rest assured you have studied the right thing, because there is so much you can do with this degree. Like, the world's your oyster, and also you're in the right place, because it's not easy to be entrepreneurial anywhere else in the world like you can in South Africa. My friend is a doctor, exactly the same position as me, qualifications, and we moved to Sydney. And there's red tape along every path she follows. She really envies that here you can literally decide tomorrow, I'm going to start a hair transplant business, and go and do it and get started.
You obviously are becoming, even though you say that you're not a celebrity, I think you'll find that you'll start to inspire a lot more youngsters out there in South Africa. And when they look at you and your show on Outpatients, like, reaches just changes the game. And when you have this captive audience and they go, I want to be like Cathy Davies, what advice do you have to that person?
You can do this in any field you're doing. And what I've learned from the show, and this lady who's actually on tonight, who's a teacher, there's so much need out there. You don't have to be a doctor to do this. We've got a permanent makeup artist who uses her talent to chip colors. And when black kids burn, they have a white patch of skin. She colors it in, makes them. You can use anything you're doing to help people, help kids to read, donate books to the library. There's so much in this country that you can and we have to do. And especially, my heart lies with children. So that's my message.
What's been your biggest failure over the last 20 years, and what did you learn from it?
I'm a terrible communicator. So
get out.
Everything's in my head, and I'm intense, and I come in and I do my 8-hour surgery and forget to talk to the staff about what I'm doing the next day. And I'm really, if I have to phone someone, I'll procrastinate. So that's something I really have to work on. And I know that, that's a huge point in business and in leadership. So that's something I have to work on every day and kind of fight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last question for you. Like, why? I can keep going. Trust me, I can keep going for ages. But like, why do you do what you do? Like, what gets Cathy out of bed in the morning?
I find, like, it sounds very weird and corny, but I find like I'm given a light that I need to shine. Like, I almost feel like I have a light in my chest, and I'm only happy and satisfied when I'm like giving of my light. So it just doesn't sit right with me if I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I hear you. Like, giving changes the game, right?
Yeah.
So, and I have this burp that's in my head. Where are you going, Cathy Davies? Like, where are you going? Like, I mean, you've got this huge platform. You've got a great story. Where's that story going? Like, where do you see it affecting more people?
I haven't definitively decided that yet, but what I have realized is using this platform, and hopefully, the future that you're so confident that it will hold, I can help a lot of more people and do a lot more than the one-by-one that I'm seeing in my practice. So I do see me maybe training someone to run that and moving more into educating and addressing people and using this as a platform for change.
Amazing. Cathy Davies, thank you so much for being on the Matt Brown Show. You've been awesome. Great to share your story with my audience as well, and wishing you and Outpatients like all the very best and changing lives around the world.
Thank you so much. I hope you're all going to watch tonight.
Yeah. Mav. Okay. Oh, shit. Sorry. We didn't. Sorry. I actually missed that sec. Why didn't you jump in, bro? I've got questions from the online audience. Sorry.
Awesome.
My bad.
Hello.
My bad. Jesus, Mav.
I'm a bad communicator, but I can answer a few questions.
This one's from Alicia. It's a common one. What advice do you have for a girl who has had a bad haircut?
Well, hang in there, because hair grows, so it's not the end of the world. And there's actually a product that makes hair grow faster. It's called Quick Grow. And it just sort of like triples the growth. So look out for quick grow, and you can just put a bit on your roots, but it's not going to happen overnight. And it's going to be...
Minanchally asks, is it difficult to work while a camera is on your face? How do you deal with that pressure?
It was totally out of my comfort zone. And they, because it was every day, I didn't have time to do hair and makeup, and they were always complaining about my hair. And eventually I just thought, this is me. Take it or leave it. If you want reality, this is it. And I sort of began to ignore them, but it was difficult.
Yeah, we want reality TV, but can you change your hair for us? Come on.
Exactly. I said to them, I can do this interview or I can go to the hairdresser. You choose.
Last one's from Anonymous. This one's kind of like a bit touchy, but hi, Cathy and Matt. Matt, thank you for interviewing these amazing people. We are proud to see our Joburg people doing these amazing things. High five. Oh, high five, Matt. Cathy, what advice do you have for teenagers who lack self-confidence due to feeling that they aren't pretty enough because of certain scars?
So what I've learned from these patients on my show is at the end of the day, and when they've worked on their self-esteem, they see their scars as a positive. Almost all of them. It's a story to tell. And it's very normal to have low self-esteem as a teenager, whether it's acne or you're just not feeling great. So hang in there. It definitely gets better. But seek help. Talk to your friends. Talk to your parents. There's so many people out there willing to help. We see the bad side of people in the media. But there's one thing I've learned is that if you open up to people, they'll help you.
Thank you.
Drops mic. Now we can end the show. Cathy, seriously, awesome stuff. I can't wait to see what's in your future. It's going to be amazing.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Make me famous.
Thanks, guys.